Hi, everyone, and welcome to Azincourt Energy's live corporate webinar. This is Will Mays with RB Milestone. Azincourt Energy is a Canadian-based resource exploration and development company focused on the alternative fuels and alternative energy sector. The shares are traded on the TSXV under the symbol AAZ and on the OTCQB under the symbol AZURF and on the FSE under the symbol A0U2. Joining us today is the company's president, CEO, and director, Alex Klenman, and Trevor Perkins, the VP of Exploration. They'll be going through Azincourt's investor presentation. This will include an overview of current operations, recent achievements, and upcoming milestones. At the end of the presentation, we'll open it up for Q&A for management to address. If you're interested in asking a question and have logged into the Zoom app or web app platform, you can submit your questions directly to us in the Q&A module. Please note that this presentation is being recorded today, Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, and will soon be made available on the company's website at azincourtenergy.com. Lastly, RBMG is not a registered investment advisor or broker-dealer. For more information, please visit rbmilestone.com. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Alex Klenman, Chief Executive Officer and Director, and Trevor Perkins, VP of Exploration at Azincourt. Gentlemen, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it, and happy to be here to give some of you an introduction to Azincourt, and for others, just an update on how things are going with our winter drill program. So as mentioned, Azincourt is a uranium exploration and development company. We've been around since 2013, so we're not a newbie in the space. We were actually called Azincourt Uranium in our early days. So we've been working over the years to build a majority position, a majority interest in the East Preston uranium project, which we've done. So we'll get to that here. Standard disclaimer page. I'm sure you've all read them before. It's available on our website if you want to read it in detail. I think the key here is the technical information in this presentation has been reviewed and approved by Trevor Perkins, PGO, and a qualified person as defined by National Instrument 43101 standards. So very important that everybody understands that. We are, as our name indicates, in the energy space. We're in the clean energy space. We see the need for nuclear energy, and we've pursued this for some time. And we know that the total amount of builds in the pipeline for nuclear reactors is close to record highs, and you're going to need more uranium to fuel those reactors, and that creates a need for exploration companies like ourselves to bring new supplies online. Oh, sorry, jumped ahead. Management. I've been the president and CEO of Azincourt since mid-2017. I was a shareholder prior to that, and I have a lot of experience in capital markets, and I've been involved longer than I care to admit. Trevor came on board at the end of 2020. I needed somebody with real world experience making discovery, and he's done that. His resume is impressive, and he is the exact guy that we need in terms of running our exploration programs. And we're bringing him on board has been probably as important a move that we've made. So happy to have Trevor. He's easy to work with, and he knows what he's doing. So thank you for that. The rest of our management team encompasses Ted O'Connor and Paul Reynolds, both professional geologists. Ted is well known in the uranium space, having spent 20 years with Cameco and was formerly the CEO of Plateau Energy Metals, which was bought out by American Lithium. And Paul Reynolds, another geologist who lives in British Columbia near us. These guys are knowledgeable, they know the space. And Vivian, our CFO, who does a great job. When you don't have issues with your CFO, that's great. So she does a wonderful job, and we're happy to have her. We know the supply-demand scenario in the uranium space is well known. It's one of the reasons why we just had $60 spot for the first time since 2010, maybe 2011. which is remarkable. We've had a prolonged bear market for uranium. It's finally woken up, and it's still not there yet. I talked to a lot of investors, and I can tell you that the feeling is that spot's going to go much higher. So that's an amazing thing, and it's finally happening. And despite the sideways moves, or the 2 steps forward, 1 step back scenario that we're in, it is moving, and it's moving in the right direction. We have 3 projects in our portfolio. Our flagship is East Preston. We've earned greater than 70% interest over the last 4 years. During the tail end of the bear, we were able to finance, which was tough, and we were able to put the money into the ground. We have the results of those years have given us over 30 kilometers of prospective exploration corridors, which we are now doing our first major pass on. We're located in a great area. We'll show you a slide on that momentarily. We also have Hatchet Lake, which is a new project for us. We're earning towards a 75% interest. It's a sizable land package in the right area, in the northeastern section of the basin, just outside the perimeter. And we have a small group of projects down in Peru that are early stage, but show great potential for uranium and lithium. So something that we keep on the shelf for a later date. As you know, if you don't know, the Athabasca is ground zero for some of the largest, highest grade uranium deposits in the world. Obviously, we like being there. It has a ton of production history. It's in a stable jurisdiction, and in terms of looking for uranium, this is the type of place you need to be. There's very few places in the world with this type of opportunity, and for us, it's great. It's in our backyard. Area market caps where we are. This is our land package down here, East Preston. You can see we're adjoined to Urano, which is a Sky Harbor Dixie Gold JV. And then Next Gen's just to the north of us. There's lots of deposits or showings or occurrences and in the area, which is fantastic for us. We're in the right neighborhood. You can see as of March 1st what the market caps around us were on that day. We're at 37 million, but Next Gen is next door at 3.2 billion. Urano, which is essentially private, is about a 2 billion market cap. You got Cameco at 12 billion in the neighborhood, and Denison at 1.5 billion. So it's kind of a Beverly Hills district, if you will, and we're happy to be involved. It's a high rent district with a lot of potential for further discovery. We've earned just over 72% now, if all the calculations are right, on East Preston. It's a 25,000 hectare project ground, which is sizable district scale. Lots of ground for deposits to hide until we find them. Next door, obviously, is Urano and the 49,000 hectares. So Preston project, east and proper, is one of the largest tendered land positions in the basin. We have, through various methods, determined tons of targeting, which Trevor will go through momentarily. And there you are, Trevor. Why don't you hop in and get going on how we got to the targeting and how the money's been spent over the last 4 years.
All right, thank you, Alex. So I'll just give a brief overview of a little bit of the history of the project here, showing how we got to where we are now. Azincourt's been involved in this project since, I believe it's 2017. The project has been in existence since about 2013, 2014. In the early stages of the project, the first step had to be done was airborne electromagnetic surveys over the entire property to sort of give us an idea of where we want to focus on the project. We were looking for conductive corridors as your first priority target criteria. Now, the reasoning for this is most unconformity uranium deposits are closely associated with a basement conductive trend. This trend, it acts as your main geochemical reductant to help form a uranium deposit. So you want this conductor, which is typically a graphitic package, and you need to know where that is to start looking. So as you can see on this particular slide, we've got a bright pink and purple and yellow area through the middle of the property, which is our primary target area, which our first area we wanted to highlight. Onto the next slide, Alex. So once you've located your conductive corridors in the airborne surveys, you go in on the ground, because the conductive corridors in the airborne survey are quite wide. They're quite a broad zone. So you need to know exactly where in that trend you want to be, in that corridor you want to be. So we start with a ground-based survey of an EM survey and we've also thrown gravity into the mix as well. So the EM helps us identify exactly where the conductor is within that corridor previously highlighted. And on this slide, you can see that the EM conductors are the squiggly lines that go through the middle of the grid. The color in the background, that's our gravity survey that was ran on the same lines. Now, the gravity is really good at identifying where you've got areas of broken up ground, less dense ground, where structures come through. So you want to see where a structure and the conductive package line up. The structures allow the fluids to move. The conductor is your reductant. So you want to get areas where those two are able to mix together. Next slide, Alex. So just going back out and looking at the broad picture again, to give you an idea of targets. This picture is from a VTEM survey that was ran in 2019 over the entire property again, just to make sure that there were no targets that were missing. And you can see that our main conductive corridor still passes through the middle of the property. That is our AG trend, and just parallel to it to the east is our KHQ trend. So you can see to the west of these main trends, we've still got a bunch of parallel smaller trends that haven't even been touched yet, that'll have to be examined in the future. And to the east, we've got more focused, more like bullseye conductive targets, which will have to be looked at in some detail as well. So as you can see from this picture, no shortage of targets on the property, no shortage at all. Next slide, Alex. So now the best way, once you've focused in on your area you want to be, the best way to find a uranium deposit, of course, is drilling. The truth is always in the drill hole. Everything else just gets you into the area. So prior to this year's program, 24 holes had been drilled on the property, and those were dominantly in our A and AB zones at the north end of the previously identified conductive trend. So these drill holes showed us that we had good lithologies, we had our graphitic conductor, we had good structure in the area, and trace element geochemistry from samples taken from those holes also showed that we had elevated base metal pathfinders. So the fluids that were passing through the area were carrying base metals like nickel, cobalt, copper, zinc, lead, and some arsenic. And we also saw in some holes some elevated rare earth elements as well. So there's something else we can examine in the future as well. So we're ticking off all the boxes. We're seeing elevated base metals. We're seeing good structure, good lithologies, lots to keep us interested. Next slide, Alex. So when I came on board in late 2020, the very first thing we did was set up a drill program for that following winter. It was the first program that I was involved with in the field. We had planned 10 to 12 drill holes. Due to warm weather, we only managed to drill 5 before we had to move out because of spring breakup hitting us a bit earlier than expected. But the interesting thing about these 5 holes, we refined a couple of targets in the A and AB zone that we tested, still showed us we had good lithologies, good structure. And we also started drilling at the north end of our G zone. Now, the interesting thing here is the north end of the G zone and the hole we drilled on the AB zone as well. They were showing us not only did we had the good structure and lithologies, we were starting to see elevated uranium in our geochemistry as well. And here we're saying elevated, we're talking 2 to 3 times our background values, or what we would normally expect to see in the rocks on an average day. So we're seeing elevated count or elevated uranium. That's a good thing. It shows us that we're moving towards where we want to be. Next slide, Alex. So then we came to the winter 2022 program, the program that is still ongoing as we speak. So this program was planned as a 6,000 meter program, approximately 30 holes. The largest individual program ran to date on the property. And the idea here was to pick up where the shortened 2021 program left off and continue to test the targets. So we started with the G zone, and then of course the plan was to move on to the KHQ trend. So now the status I'm showing you, the drill program is still going on, but this slide captures program progress as of the 28th of February, which was the last time we made data from the project public. So at that time, we had drilled 3,200 meters in 13 holes, and the G zone, where we started drilling, was showing really good evidence of hydrothermal alteration in the south end of the trend, in particular in hole EP30 that Alex is highlighting there. We're also seeing evidence of cross structures. So we're seeing a cross structure intersecting our main northwest trending structure. Anywhere you see cross structures coming across and intersecting, that tells you that you got better ground preparation, a lot more broken up. The intersections of those structures is typically where all your fluids can come in and pool together and intermix with the rocks. And that's typically where you're hopefully going to see the uranium deposits drop out. So we're seeing that evidence. We've got the hydrothermal alteration, we got the good structures. We just need to follow it up, and drilling was ongoing to follow that up. So we should see some more results from that soon. Now on to the K zone. At the time of creating this slide, we had identified an 800 meter long hydrothermal alteration zone. 4 holes were drilled on the K zone. All 4 holes intersected good hydrothermal hematite alteration and a little bit of clay alteration coming into the system as well. Now, the northernmost hole on this trend, we unfortunately lost in a significant structure zone filled with some sand and some glacial till coming down into the fracturing and structure as well, nearer to surface. So good alteration still, good structure, has everything going for it, and that type of package continues on down through the trend. Interestingly, the first hole on this trend, hole EP35, right in the middle of the trend, also gave us elevated radioactivity. And we're talking radioactivity 10 times our normal background values. So we're seeing good hydrothermal alteration, good structure. The hydrothermal alteration is consisting of hematite and clay. So we're seeing more higher intensity alteration than just the normal hematite we would expect to see first as well. And we're seeing elevated radioactivity. We're on the right track here. The trend is 800 meters long. We expect that trend to be growing as drilling continues on the K zone, and drilling is commencing in the H zone area as well. So we're expecting to see good things from these areas, and definitely more information will be coming as to what we're pulling out of those areas as the program continues.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Trevor. I think that that's it for East Preston. We'll go over Hatchet Lake as well. Hatchet Lake is in the northeastern side of the basin. You can see with this graphic how much production and how much deposition there is along this corridor. This is the key corridor in the basin. So when we were looking for a second project, we wanted something that was a little advanced and certainly drill ready and in the right area. And Hatchet Lake met that criteria. It's an earn-in deal with Valor Metals. It's quite an easy earn-in. It's a good earn-in. It's solid. Every dollar we put in the ground gets us percentage. So we're looking at about $1 million or more drill program next winter, which is really only 8, 9, 10 months away now. So it's coming, and we're going to be drilling Hatchet as well as East Preston, obviously. We like the area. It's important that people understand this transition zone and the importance of it. And I'll let Trevor get into that now. So Trevor, go ahead and explain why this area is so critical.
All right. So as Alex mentioned, we're on a significant structural corridor in the eastern side of the basin between two geological domains. Now, what's significant about this structural corridor, it's fairly wide, and it extends from south of the basin up through Key Lake, all the way up through the basin and continues on north of where we are as well. All of the significant uranium deposits on the east side of the basin identified to date are within this corridor. All of the high-grade deposits that are currently being mined and have previously been mined are in this corridor. It is arguably one of the most significant structural corridors in the basin. Now, this corridor is also where the first deposits within the basin were discovered. That got people to start looking within the basin instead of around the edges. Initially, they were looking around the edges, looking for something similar to what they were seeing in Uranium City. But so in the 60s and 70s, some work got done around the outside of the basin. But then as soon as Rabbit Lake was found within the basin, and shortly thereafter Key Lake, all the interest went into the basin. Outside the basin was ignored. Next slide, Alex. So zooming into our Hatchet Lake project, you can see it's just outside the basin margin, which is the squiggly line that goes down through the middle of the slide. And it's in the right area. We're on trend of some fairly significant deposits. Rough Rider, Midwest, Husky, McLean Lake are all along trend from us. To the south of us, we have Eagle Point, the former producing Collins Bay and Rabbit Lake deposits. It's a lot going for the area. And as I mentioned, work has been done on this project area in the 60s and 70s by Gulf Minerals, and then Saskatchewan Mining and Development Corporation got involved later in the 70s and into the early 80s. And they did a lot of geophysics, and some drilling was also done in the early days. But the drilling that was done was prior to the discovery of Key Lake. So the connection between the uranium and graphitic packages and graphitic conductors hadn't really been well established prior to Key Lake being discovered. So the drilling wasn't necessarily targeting the best targets. So there's some question as to whether that drilling was useful at all. Additional work has been done in the property. It sat idle for a while. Then it was picked up by Hathor Exploration in the early 2000s. They sold it. They were bought out by Rio Tinto. So then Rio Tinto worked the property, and between the two of them, they did a lot more geophysics, a lot of ground sampling, and previous operator Valor, who we've made the option to deal with as well, they got in there and did some sampling once they acquired the property as well. So there's been a good batch of samples. Go on to the next slide, please, Alex. This slide, you can see the red dots on the slide are all the various types of samples that have been collected on the property and that are shown where they're responding good values. We've got lake sediments, stream sediments, soil geochemistry, and rock geochemistry, and uranium assays in rocks as well. Now, they identified up to 24 radioactive samples as well, with one of those samples running as much as just under 2.5% uranium. So there's some significant boulder samples that have come from the property. Lots going for it. Two main target areas have been identified so far: the southwest Scrime zone in the southwest of the property, and the upper Manson zone in the northeast end of the property. The 2.5% uranium boulder actually comes from the south end of the upper Manson zone.
Hey, Trevor, let me just ask you a quick question, because I think it's important for people to understand the grade. At 2.5%, what's your average grade in the basin, and what's considered high grade, and how does at 2.4% stack up?
At 2.4%, you're in the range of a high grade deposit. Typically, anything above Key Lake grades, which averaged 2%, was considered high grade. The world average is 0.2%. So we're well above world average uranium grades here. And yeah, so it's classed as a high, it would be classed as a high grade deposit should there be a deposit that this boulder came from found. Now we're fairly confident that the source for this boulder is on our property. Ice flow directions through the area, bringing things down from the northeast. So yeah, we're fairly confident that that we actually have the sources for a lot of these boulders on the property. Now, as I mentioned, the two target areas that have been highlighted, you can also see in the black circles on the slides, many more target areas that as we continue to do work on the property and get more familiar with the property, these areas will be upgraded as well, I'm sure. So no shortage of work to be done here. All the prep work has been done. What needs to be done with this property now is drilling. So it's ready to drill.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And we will be drilling it shortly, as well as part of our agreement with Valor. We put $1 million minimum into year one exploration, and we're ready to do that. We have the projects in Peru. I'm not going to talk about them today. The information's on our website. We like the projects, but we're just simply not a priority with what's happening in East Preston and what's on the horizon with Hatchet Lake as well. We need to devote our time, energy, and capital to those two projects. So Escalara will sit on the sidelines. Here is our capital structure and our share makeup. Yeah, we have a lot of stock out. It's always a retail concern. It's not to the institutional funds who have made their presence considerably known in our world. We have over 10 million in the bank. We've raised north of 15 million in the last 12 months, 16 months, 18 months. And the majority of that comes from funds. We have over 22 institutional funds currently invested in Azincourt, which is very rare for a pre-discovery drill stage company. Typically, funds don't like to take risk. Anytime you haven't made that significant discovery, there's still much risk on the table. But knowing the data, knowing the sector, knowing the stages of development, particularly at East Preston, the funds felt it was de-risked enough to make significant investments. So we're very happy that they're in the game with us. They're allowing us to drill aggressively, which is what you need to do. And up until this year, we were poking away a few holes here and there, but this year we're going to get up around 6,000 meters, and that's a big program. And thanks to the funds, we're able to do that. As I mentioned, the institutional holders probably in the neighborhood of 30%, insiders and close associates another 10, family and friends another 10. So we're all invested, and we're happy to do that. It's the uranium bull that I think we're in has been a long time coming, and a lot of pent up energy, and so we're happy with the share makeup. We're happy with who's involved and who's invested. That's pretty much it. So Will, if you have questions or anything, inquiries from the audience, we're happy to answer those now.
Well, great. Well, thanks, gentlemen, and thanks for a thorough and insightful presentation. As Alice said, we are now moving to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And if you're interested in asking a question or logged into the Zoom app or web platform, you can submit your question directly into the Q&A module. We'll now take a second for some questions to be submitted. In the meantime, there has been a few questions come in, and actually the first two I'll sort of combine. Essentially, they're asking, after the winter and spring drill program at East Preston, what kind of catalyst could we be expecting for the remainder of 2022-23? And if weather permits, would you think there'd be more drilling?
Yeah, good question. Number one, catalyst for us obviously is the geochemical results that from lab analysis, which is forthcoming. We hope to get some of that back, in April, but May could be the time. We know the labs are going to be very, very busy this year, simply because of how much capital has been flowing into the sector and the area, and there's a lot of drilling going on at the moment. So the labs will be backed up. We're hoping it isn't going to be a long process, but but certainly any kind of results that will trickle in over the next 8 to 12 weeks would serve as catalyst. But I would also say the main catalyst really here for us and others like us is sentiment. And right now, I mean, it's amazing that at even $58 or $60 spot that people are questioning and not quite sure. But it does feel like we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, which is fine. If you go back historically and you look at spikes in the spot price of uranium, you'll see that it's never straight line up. There's always back off days. There's always these things. But as long as you're getting higher highs and higher lows, those are good signs, and we're doing that now. But catalysts really between our drill results and what happens on a macro level with the space will all contribute to our market cap and our valuation. And for the remainder of the year, I mean, look, we're going to look at doing some summer work. Summer work in the basin is not as easy as winter work. There's a number of reasons for that. A lot of the ground is water. There's a lot of water around. Makes it harder to move around in the summer, but also you have increased usage of the land by the local communities. And we are very cognizant of that. And we have to work in partnership with people who live in the area and who's traditionally have used this land. So we're very cognizant of that and recognize the importance of working in tandem with the local communities. So we don't want to disrupt the local communities and their use of the land in the summer months. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to get things done. But again, I would anybody worried about short-term catalysts over the summer, I would say, before you know it, we're going to be talking about next winter's drill programs, and that'll also serve as catalysts, and that'll begin in the fall or late summer. So as permitting develops, as plans develop, those will also serve as catalysts. So there you go, Will.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I think this investor would really like to try and gauge your confidence level in the success of this drilling program going forward.
Sure. And Trevor, I'll get you your opinion here, but let me throw this out. Funny how you mark success in uranium exploration. Right now, this drill program is categorized as successful. And that is because of the alteration zone that we've got to drill into. This is first order criteria for uranium deposition. We need to find the structural situation that we're in, the alteration, hematite, the clays. These are very important things to drilling and extremely encouraging. But if you're asking us if we believe that we've discovered uranium, it's a little early for that, and there's no guarantee. What we do know is we're in the ballpark, and that's a really good. That's something we didn't know really before this drill program. So in terms of success, this is successful. Are we confident that eventually, at some point, we're going to run into a nice mineralized hole and be able to stand on the soapbox and say discovery? Yeah, we are confident. Is it going to happen today, tomorrow? That we don't know. And so it's already successful from a technical standpoint. These are massive. This is a massive situation that we're running into. The alteration zone is a beautiful thing to see, and geologists like Trevor you can elaborate a little more, Trevor, but I think I'm pretty accurate.
Well, yeah, you're summing it up pretty good there. I mean, the reality is the majority of the major deposits have been discovered by identifying an alteration trend, an alteration zone, and chasing it, chasing the alteration to find the deposit, whether it be a long strike, a cross strike, or even down into the basement below the alteration, as Millennium was found. MacArthur was found by going a long strike from alteration. Key Lake was found by going a cross strike from alteration in early holes. So, identifying that alteration, which acts like a big bullseye. I mean, your alteration zone is going to be like a big bullseye around the deposit. So you're typically going to see that before you see the deposit. And then it's moving in to find the deposit within that bigger zone.
Yeah, well said. So lots of work to do. We'd already say this has been very successful, but a lot of people Retail investors will say success is, how much uranium do you have in the hole? We won't know that until those geochemical results come back, and we've got a lot of core this time around. So stay tuned.
Great. And this is I believe, the last question. This investor would like to know what the longer term plan is once discovery is made. What do you expect to do in the longer term with the company? Is the exit strategy, et cetera?
Right. When the day comes, we're confident that we've discovered a deposit or we've found the mineralization we need to find. Then we have to delineate that the size, the footprint. Is this a continuous footprint? Is it broken up? Are these pods? Are they separated by open ground? How does it all lay out? What does the landscape look like for that mineralization? So there's further development there, but we go from looking for discovery to now developing that discovery. That'll take more drilling and more time to delineate size. But things certainly change from that standpoint forward. And we don't think we're real far off from that. So hopefully sooner rather than later. But the project is so good, it's so big, and there's so many targets. And now that we're seeing this alteration, we're optimistic and very encouraged. Trevor, if you want to add to that, feel free.
I think you've summed it up pretty good. The first finding the uranium is just an early step. You've then got to figure out how much you have and do a resource estimate on it, and then take it from there. Now, how far we go with that will all depend on market conditions at the time, and that's so much can happen between now and then.
Right, and I think the question was also about the exit strategy. And in other words, do we want to become a mining operation? Do we want to sell to a major? We don't know yet really how that's going to play out. But to have that question posed in a serious and definite manner would be a really good thing. So, when we get there and we have to make those types of decisions, most of those types of decisions kind of make themselves. So if we find something of size, sure, the doorbell will probably ring, and we'll answer the door. But until then, we need to delineate size, scope, get an idea of footprint, and we're in the beginning stages of doing that. Obviously, the next step is to get into good mineralization and then go from there.
Great. Well, thanks, Alex and Trevor. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Today's webinar recording will soon be made available on Azincourt's website. If you have any additional questions that have not been addressed on the webinar, please feel free to email us at azincourt@rbmilestone.com. Thanks again, and this concludes the webinar.